Yesterday's autumn budget was certainly a big one, especially if you have investments, rental property, or use venture capital investments. Here's what it means for you from a financial planning perspective. So first of all, the overall picture of the economy. The Chancellor's core message was no headline rises in income tax, NI or VAT, but a lot of extra revenue through freezes and tweaks. The Office for Budget Responsibility now expects UK growth at about 1.5% for 2025, and then slipping slightly after that, with inflation sitting at around 3.5% next year and then easing back towards 2% from 2027. So in plain English, the tax take is going up to a record share of the economy, and planning around tax drag is now more important than ever. Personal tax and ISAs were changed. So for income tax and national insurance, the tax thresholds are frozen until 2031, which means that as your salary or pension income rises, more of it is dragged into basic, higher rate and additional rate tax, which is a classic stealth tax. Tax on income on assets has also increased, with dividend tax increasing by 2 percentage points from April 26 for basic and high rate taxpayers. So the main rates move to 10.75% and 35.75%, with the additional rates staying at 39.35%. For savings interest from April 27, the tax rate will increase by 2 percentage points across all bands. So broadly 22% for basic rate taxpayers, 42% for high rate taxpayers, and 47% for additional rate taxpayers. Also changes to ISAs. So from April 27, the cash ISA allowance is cut from £20,000 to £12,000 a year for anybody aged under 65. But just to be clear there, if anybody wanted to make a £12,000 cash ISA allowance, they still would be allowed to make an £8,000 stocks and shares ISA contribution on top of that. And for the over 65s, the cash allowance remains the same. Stocks and shares ISA remain unchanged. And the LISA or lifetime ISA has been scrapped and replaced by a new, simpler first-time buyer ISA. But with details to follow, anyone mid-planning or anybody's children mid-planning to buy their first home need to watch this very closely. Wealth and property from April 28, a new high-value council tax surcharge kicks in on homes in England worth over £2 million, which will be £2,500, and £7,500 for homes worth over £5 million. We'll wait to see what happens in Wales, because obviously that's devolved. Pensions and salary sacrifice. So pension tax relief itself hasn't been cut, but salary sacrifice is being capped. So from 2029, only the first £2,000 a year of pension income contributions made via salary sacrifice will be free of national insurance. Above that, both employee and employer NICs will apply as normal, although income tax relief itself will remain as is. There's also a new pension commission and a fresh state pension age review, so more structural changes are likely under this parliament. For our higher earners and those making large employer contributions, the cap really needs to be factored into remuneration and pension funding strategies. There were also significant changes to venture capital, EIS and VCT. So from April 26, company limits for EIS and VCT rise substantially, up to £10 million a year per company, £20 million a year for knowledge-intensive companies. Lifetime limits rise to 24 million for standard companies and 40 million for knowledge-intensive companies. Assets limits move from 30 million pre-money to 35 million post-money, but the normal subscription amounts will remain the same for all investments. There has, however, been a change for VCT on upfront income tax, which is cut from 30% to 20%, again from April 26, but the EIS stays the same at 30% for now. So in short, more room for larger, later stage investments, but with less generous VCT income tax relief, which will change how we compare EIS to VCT for higher risk capital. So what this means for your planning, in summary, freezes and small percentage changes do add up, especially if your income or dividends and rental profits are growing. Shelters like ISAs and pensions become even more valuable, but rules around how we use them are shifting. Venture capital and scale-up reliefs are still attractive, but with the balance between EIS now slightly changed. So, that's something we can review. So if you're unsure how today's budget affects your income, investments or retirement plans, now is a really good time to review your strategy with your advisor, and feel free to contact us at any point. Thanks for your time.